Hello Internet! Today we are going to be looking at Visual Studio Live Share. So this is a new tool for Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio, I think just for Windows. Visual Studio Code will work on pretty much anything. I've tried it on a Mac and on this PC. Works fine. Haven't tried the actual Visual Studio version yet. I just have been using Visual Studio Code more. But what it lets you do is synchronize three main things. One, you can synchronize your entire code project. So if you've ever used Google Docs or I guess now OneDrive and Office 365, where you can kind of have collaborative editing of a document, this lets you do that for code. And not just code, but also like debuggers. So you can share your debugging experience across not just your own computer, but literally anybody else you're working with. So if there was a live stream, somebody could hop on and we could debug a problem together, for example. So that's sort of cool. It's better than screen sharing because it's your own editor. You can go to a different file if you want to. You can do whatever you want. You're not just looking at the same screen. You're looking at the same files. And so it sort of works as a shared host. So one Visual Studio instance becomes the host, and that's going to share a project. And then the other one connects. And so that connection is end-to-end encrypted, which means that nobody in between is going to see what you're sending across, including Microsoft, which means that you shouldn't have any issues with, say, somebody getting a hold of maybe your code. There's two ways that the communication can happen. There's direct communication, which is sort of the default. It tries to choose direct because it's just faster. And that's where you have literally just a direct connection between one computer and another. If you're on the same machine, that's probably what it's going to choose. And then if you're doing something else and direct communication doesn't work, there is a relay communication. And what that does is uses a separate Microsoft server, and you communicate through that. So the traffic is still encrypted, which means Microsoft doesn't see your information. They just see the encrypted information. And so that ends up going through a service bus thing. We've done some videos on service bus in the past. And then that ends up coming back to you. It's just as sort of like a roundabout way, sort of a shared host type thing. I guess man in the middle. But generally the result is the same. It will function identically. You just might see a little bit more lag with the relay communication. It might be a little bit more reliable, but it's a beta, so I don't know if reliability is what we're going for here. Installing it is super easy. You just get this Visual Studio Live Share extension. If you have Visual Studio Code, you can just go and download this. You do need to restart Visual Studio Code after you do that. If you don't restart it, it's not going to work. When you do restart, you'll get a prompt that shows it installing. And then you'll have two prompts down here. If you have a Microsoft account already connected to Visual Studio Code, it will automatically connect that here. As you can see, it says Sam. I'm connected through Visual Studio Live Share. This is going through Visual Studio Team Services. You don't need to use Visual Studio Team Services. You can also use GitHub. So if you have a public GitHub, that works too. So it works with either an Azure Active Directory account currently, a Microsoft account, just a public Microsoft account, or a GitHub account. It's used more, as far as I can tell, it's used just for authenticating your user. So that way you know who's trying to connect to your code base. So not just anybody can connect. And that's pretty much it. So you see we have three things here: start collaboration session, join collaboration session, and sign out. I don't need to sign out because I'm already signed in. Doesn't really matter. Another thing I should point out, you can connect, even though I have one account, both of these instances of Visual Studio Code, same version of Visual Studio Code, same computer, same account, but I can connect them together, which is less useful here. Not sure why you'd want to do this, but for demonstrations, it works great. And then if you want to bring this to, say, a different computer, like say I have a laptop or something, if I want to collaborate that way, I can actually set up something on, say, my desktop and then start a session with my laptop to connect to it. And so that way, even though I have one account, I'm actually getting some value out of that. Before we go any further, beta. So it's still a work in progress. You can see the preview sticker up here. There's going to be bugs, but from what I've seen, it's fairly fairly well supported, and I haven't had any major issues pop up. So yeah, I'll post a link to a GitHub page. It's not, to my knowledge, open source, but they do have a GitHub page for issue tracking and things like that. So if you run into any issues, you can either create an issue or star or upvote somebody else's issue that matches what you're encountering. Anyway, I'm gonna leave this here. There's installation stuff here. You can walk through that. What we're going to do is just kind of set up a basic project and kind of just look at some of the features we can do. There's three main things that you can do. One, I'm going to start by just Control-Shift-P, or is it Control-Shift-P? Hold on. Yeah, Control-Shift-P or Control-Shift-tilde. Either one works, but that's going to open up this fancy little menu where I can type things in, open up a terminal, and we need a new project to work in. So let's just create a .NET new console app. And this is just going to create a bare bones console application. Like nothing there. We get a program and that's pretty much it. And so I can run that. Hold on. Didn't think this through. We have a camera in the mix. So the command, just in case you missed it, was .NET new console. And so what we need to do now, required assets to build and debug are missing, add them. Sure, why not? So that's just going to configure some Visual Studio Code things. We got a new Visual Studio Code folder here. That doesn't really matter for now. What we want to do is just .NET run, which is just going to, it should print hello world. That's just going to compile and run our program. So we get this fun hello world, everything's working. And so I should be able to just, develop my thing, but I don't really want to. Instead, I want to share this. And so I'm going to click this little share button. It's currently in the auto connection. That improves performance for collaboration on the same network by accepting incoming secured connections when sharing. This is just saying your firewall is going to prompt you to allow this to happen. If you're on a corporate network, this can get a little bit hairy. But I haven't had any issues with direct connection. So, yeah. So we'll allow this through. There we go. And it's going to display this thing here. You can't see this, but what it says is invite link copied to clipboard. And then it gives us an option to copy it again. And you'll notice the icons down here changed. One, we have this group of people with a 0 next to it. That's because there's nobody here. It's just me. And then we have this fun little icon that shows a person with brain waves coming out of them. And that's me. I'm broadcasting. So we can go here, and these links have changed now. I can get a link again. So if I ever lose that link and I've closed this message down here, I can just click to do this, and it will pop up the message again, and we're good to go. And so that link is going to allow us to actually give it to somebody, and they'll be able to connect to us. But there's two others, Share Terminal and Share Server. So Share Terminal is going to allow you to share your terminal, your actual Visual Studio Code terminal, with somebody else. By default, that's not shared, so nobody else can enter commands and do all these fun things. But if you want to let somebody run your command, or if we had a read line, for example, so if I had a var input equals console.read line, like so. Let's just change this up a little bit. I'm actually going to stop here because we have a share link. Why not use it? So let's go to here, our other instance, and join a collaboration session. I lost the link, so let's just go here, copy, and paste, and we're good to go. If you have it already on your clipboard, if you have a valid link, it will automatically paste it into that field for you, so you don't need to do anything. But you can see we're opening a remote session down here. And now all of my code that is in my right thing is now in my left. I'm going to move this over just a bit because we care more about the left side than we do the right side. And so you can't see this, but it says Sam Ronsky joined your collaboration session. So I joined my collaboration session. That's great because it means that I'm here. And you also see the one went up. If I ever want to, I can jump to that person. So I can actually, if I'm in a different file, so if I'm in my CS proj file. I can go there. Ooh, one of them is following. How did I do that? Whoops. I'm demonstrating what I didn't mean to demonstrate yet, and I don't know why. Focus participants. I don't want to focus participants. I focus somebody, and I don't know why. Okay, so I should talk about what's going on here because I am confused, and it's not obvious why. There is an option to focus somebody, and what happens when when you focus them is you literally follow them around. So what this means is if you've focused somebody else in the group, as they're moving between files and moving around and typing things, you will follow them in that session. So if you're trying to do like a paired programming thing, it's helpful because then you can actually see as the other person is typing, you're not like in a different file doing something else. It kind of helps you kind of stay with them at a minimal amount of work. You can also see we have these orange cursors. One's down here, that's me on this right side. And then over here, we have this one by the console. It's me on the left side. So it's sort of Google Doc-esque. I don't know, that's sort of the parallel I've drawn. But either one of us can edit, so I can just hit enter and we get a new line. And then I can just print out console.writeLine. Hello. That is not a helpful place to put that. All right. Am I completely forgetting C#? I might be completely forgetting C#, but we're going to try it anyway. Input. There we go. I think that's right. So that should be a inline string, an interpolated string, which is going to take the input and just kind of put it there. So instead of that, let's jump over here and just say input a name. And you'll notice I'm just kind of swapping between these two files. It doesn't really matter one or the other because it's shared. One thing I should note, the code over on the left side, the one in the join session, is not permanent. Which means if I were to, just as an example, end the collaboration session, it's going to kick the other person out and they lose everything. And that's sort of by design. So you don't get all this other fun stuff. So if I want to start this again, I can just start a new collaboration session and it will start it right back up for me. But just be aware of that the code lives on one side. And you can see now that I just copied it over, it automatically just pasted it. I didn't have to do anything. Anyway, we're back. So this should print our name. So it's going to prompt us for a name, read in the name, and then output it. So what I want to do is share my terminal so that the person on the left can run and debug it. That's what we're going for. So in order to do that, we just click share terminal, and I can either give them read-only access, which means they're just going to be able to see what I type in my terminal. They're not going to be able to do anything else. So if you're just like entering commands to kind of do things, that's probably the better option, because if you give them write access, they can do write things on your terminal. You'll notice I clicked read write. Now we get a PowerShell. This is Windows, so PowerShell. If you're on something else, it's going to be a different type of shell. But we have a PowerShell, and I have things on both sides. It looks identical. It should look identical. And you'll notice if I type, say, echo, hello, and hit enter, they both do the same thing. It's mirrored, which is great because it means I can go over to the other side, type echo, hello, and it does the exact same thing, even though I entered it on the opposite one. I know that's kind of basic, but you know, it's a cool example. So what we want to do now is actually run this. So on the right side, let's just .NET run. And so this will do exactly what we did previously. It will start and run our thing, and then we'll just give it a name, say Sam, and it comes up with hello Sam. I did that on both terminals. Oops, that's my desktop. So the cool thing here, I can flip-flop, or if we're working collaboratively, somebody can be editing the code and somebody else can be doing some console stuff. Other cool thing, This isn't a web project and it doesn't really prove anything if I run it locally. But you can also share web requests, share servers. And so what this is going to do is ask you to give it a port to expose. This is going to allow anybody in your shared session to see that port as if it's their local thing, which effectively means, say you have a website and you're hosting it on localhost 8080. You can share 8080. So if I just type 8080 here, whatever's open on 8080 will get shared, mirrored effectively on the other person, which means when they request something to port 8080, it's going to come across the relay or the direct connection to my web server that I might have running here and get executed. It doesn't mean that they're hosting their new web server of whatever on their local host. It's just redirecting everything all the way down the pipe back here. So if you're working on like an ASP.NET project, you can actually share that server with somebody you're pairing with, maybe across the country or in a different country, and they'll be able to actually see it, execute commands against it, use the REST calls, and just do normal REST things on a local service that isn't hosted anywhere except on a local machine. And you can connect to Debugger and stuff. That's cool. So I'm pretty sure this is the part where we get into experimentation, because I have not finished figuring out this tool yet. I want to set up a debugger. I've never done that in Visual Studio Code. So I know we can like right click and run code. That's actually not a Visual Studio Code thing. That's an extension I have. But what it does is it literally just runs the code. That's a bad example because it actually isn't really going to do what I want. But what we can do is hopefully connect a debugger to this. So if I go here, I should be able to launch this with a debugger and attach a breakpoint here. And you can see the breakpoints are shared. So I placed a breakpoint on the right. The one on the left saw it. I should be able to start this and see all of my inspected variables on the left side. Never tried this before. So if this doesn't work, oops. All right, input a name. It's popping up with our debugger stuff, so this is promising. So we need to input a name. What should we give it? Let's do Sam. We did that last time. And so, why do I feel like that didn't work? I'm like 90% sure that that's not how this is supposed to work. I'm not super familiar with Visual Studio Code's debugger. And I'm pretty sure that just doing this doesn't work. And I don't know why. So we are going to pull this read line out. It just has to happen. Everything is going to continue to do all that fun stuff. I can also disconnect on the left side, it looks like. So I can disconnect from the debugger without affecting the person who's actually debugging. So if I didn't want to be in that debugging session for whatever reason, I can get out. And so Visual Studio Code should support more debuggers than C#, so Python and stuff. But let's just get an input that's equal to something that isn't that. So let's do hello world of 0. Cool. So all of those things happened. Let's restart this. And so hopefully, assuming I did all of this right, we should get a new debugger attached. And we should actually hit our breakpoint this time because I didn't have to input anything in the console. Not really sure why the console input wasn't really working, but I'm new to the debug console. But the cool thing is, I have my local variables over on this other person, this remote person who isn't even necessarily near my actual PC. They're able to see all of the debugging stuff and just work with it. That's really cool. So they can see like world of 0 is there. They can see our arguments that were coming in. All of this fun stuff. They can add watches, it looks like. That's cool. Don't know how to do that, so we're just gonna ignore that. But a watch is going to like watch for changes on specific variables. I'm not super familiar with using it in Visual Studio Code, so we're just gonna gloss over that. But as far as I can tell, you get a debugger on your remote client. The other thing I want to test is we're going to kick both people out. So if you stop it on the host, both people lose it and get kicked off the session. Kind of interesting that it keeps the highlight there. That is odd, but okay. Oh, so that yellow is highlighted stuff. Okay, one more test. What we can do multiple cursors in Visual Studio. Okay, so it only has one cursor at the first one you place. If you start doing multiple cursors, it's not going to see that. It's cool that it can see the highlights, and it looks like it doesn't see multiple highlights either. So if you highlight multiple things, like if you're finding and replacing something like refactors, that may not show up. Just something to consider. Getting lost here. I want to see if I can start a debugging session on the host or on the client. I don't think the configuration would come across, and it doesn't look like it has. But if I click play here, that shouldn't do anything, right? Like this shouldn't work. I don't think. If this works, this is gonna be awesome. All right. So it's creating it for our DLL, doing all that fun stuff. We can save that, close it. And it doesn't save anything because that would go back to the host, which makes perfect sense. So as far as I can tell, you're not going to be able to start a debugging session from the client. Maybe that's a thing you can do in the future, but for now, I don't see a way to. Maybe I missed it, so if I did, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I don't know. This is sort of what I've been experimenting with for the past while. I've been finding this really fun because there's just so much you can do with this. So anyway, I'll leave this here. I'll let you guys kind of explore this. We'll probably be using this more. It'd be really cool, like to do more live streams and stuff and get people to actually kind of hop in. Either if I'm stuck on a problem, get them to hop in and actually like help fix it, or if something else is going on, just I don't know, walk people through random things and actually have like do pair programming and stuff. I think that'd be really fun. So there may be more of that in the future, but I just kind of wanted to introduce this. It's still in beta. They're still trying to kind of figure things out. But if you want to try it out, you can go try it out. It's free. And yeah, so that's it for this video. So until next time, see you, Internet.